Hello and welcome to the DSS demo for Group 7. We have a login page here to our pseudo EMR and DSS. We'll begin by adding some login credentials for our physicians. After logging in, we move on to the patient form page, and here we see that the physician has been recognized based on their credentials, and a unique visit ID and patient ID has been created for the patient who's visiting the physician. We'll begin first by adding some patient information. We already have some auto-saved information that we will be using. So we now have the first name, last name, the parent's name. Since we are trying to predict pediatric appendicitis, we would like to pick an individual who's probably younger than 19. So maybe I'll pick somebody who is 13 years of age, perhaps. We can populate their gender. Again, age and gender are very critical to our model. So we definitely want that information. And we can then pick the insurance. Again, another critical section here is the vitals. So we'll fill in the vitals. We found body temperature to be somewhat associated or to be a critical factor in determining the appendicitis prediction. So we auto calculate BMI over here. And now we'll put some family medical history. We could add diabetes over here. And then we move on to the next column, which is the reason for today's visit. Since we want to diagnose appendicitis, we'll probably write some symptoms over here. Sorry, this should be loss of appetite. And then we'll fill in the patient's current medical history or previous medical history. We could write maybe eczema, allergies. A common allergy could be peanuts. We could write the current medications, maybe something like Accutret, Aldactone. And then we can mention the record of previous surgeries or hospitalizations in the given year. We don't have one. And then we can enter the physician, say, okay, and then we move on to another critical section, which is clinical assessment. Over here, all our clinical assessments are tailored to abdominal uh, disorders. So there is no migratory pain, but there is pain in lower right abdomen, which is a telltale sign of maybe appendicitis. And then we can mark no for all of the other conditions. Maybe a yes for nausea or loss of appetite. And then we move on to the lab test section. So we can fill this to be 11. This can be 4.66. Hemoglobin can be around 12. RDW will be 14.1. Can put the thrombocyte count to be 287. This could be perhaps 84. Neutrophilia could be yes. No for everything else. And then we can click the done button. And this should save the patient information in a database. I can show you if it is there or not by opening our related table, which in this case could be the visit or the patient table. So as you would remember that the patient ID was 30, and in our database there is patient 30. Okay, moving back to the EMR and DSS, we'll click the small button, let's predict diagnosis. What this will do is that it will pull It will run a model for this specific patient, and we see that the prediction is appendicitis with a probability of 0.6874 for our patient. And this diagnosis has also been recorded in our DSS. Again, I can show you a related table, which in this case is diagnosis. And as you would remember, the visit ID was 30. And you could see here that the diagnosis ID 18 is mapped to visit ID 30, and our data has been recorded. So that's all from our end, and thank you for joining us.